No, actually, there used to be something which is called the various ashramas of life. So the third one is what is called a one prasthashram. Actually, idea doesn't come to them. It is Yudhishthir is ruling the country. If you recollect, we were doing the first book at that time. It was mentioned over there that Dhritarashtra and his wife were literally forced at gunpoint to go away into the jungles, so that they do not fall into the trap of staying with their son's killer. And so they went away. Normally, in ancient times, the four ashramas were followed. One is the when the child is born, Balashram is actually very when the child doesn't understand. Then, as he grows up into a youth, and from there he gets married, there is Grahasthashram. Grahasthashram means everybody who gets married, they follow this path of Grahasthashram, that is living with the family and having one or two children. After having the children, then they are supposed to. I mean, that is how it was mentioned, by the way. Living like brother and sister together later on, and then after some time, when the children have grown up and the son and daughter have grown up, daughter to be married off, and son will take care of the family wealth and empire, whatever that was there. And after some time, you go to the jungles. That is called Vanaprasthashram. You go to jungles. And the last one is called a sannyas. Basically, sannyasa means renouncing everything. Nothing in this world can be kept with you. You just have to renounce everything and to walk away. That was the ancient times. But today's day and age, we do not have, first and foremost, we don't have forest to go into one prasthashram. We have very big places like New York City and all, and we can't have Vanaprasthashram there. So the only aspect left in our world is to be a grahastha. Stay where you are and do mental renunciation. That is what Krishna has spoken about in the Bhagavad Gita. Do mental renunciation. Mental renunciation means you are not bothered about the fruit of whatever action that you do. That is mental renouncing. Alright? It's only after you do mental renouncing and then you give up your regular life, not by throwing it away, but staying where you are, living in this material world, but not bothered about the end results. And also you are doing the job only for the purpose of doing your job. Alright? Beyond that, nothing else. And that is how a person is supposed to live now. Because we have had sages like Ramakrishna Paramahansa. We have had sages like we'll have to send one more invite. Okay, one second. Alright, so today, in today's day and age, we do not follow that system. We follow a system which Ramakrishna Paramahansa or Ramana Maharshi or any of these great sages have recommended. There is no place to go, by the way. The Himalaya is no longer Indian territory. To go to, let us say, for example, if I have to go to Kailash Manasarovar, I have to take hundreds of permissions from the government, Indian government, Chinese government, these, and we will have gun-toting people roaming around with us. So it is not like what has remained. So the only thing is you need to do mental renunciation and you can live as a sannyasi. A sannyasi doesn't mean that you need to go away somewhere or you need to wear some fancy clothes or anything. color or white color. No need to wear all those. But you can definitely stay away. It is like you are there, yet you are not there. You can definitely do that. But there is always time for all those things. Understood? So, yeah. Any other question? No? All right. So I'll just take on this Canto 3, Chapter 5. This is Vidura's talk with Maitreya. Sukdev Goswami said Vidura, the best among the Kuru dynasty, who was perfect in devotional service to the Lord, thus reached the source of the celestial Ganga river, Hardua, where Maitreya, the great fathomless learned sage of the world, was seated. Vidura, who was perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence, inquired from him. Vidura said, O great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness. But one finds neither satisfaction nor the mitigation of distress. On the contrary, one is only aggravated by such activities. Please therefore give us directions on how one should live for real happiness. So, Senthil, your questions are going to get answered very soon. Yeah, yeah. See, Uddhava was given an instruction by Krishna to go and teach the world, basically. So he has to go to the Badrika ashram. It is the instructions given by his guru, his master. And at that moment in time, Vidura comes over there. So he tells Vidura, see, all this knowledge has been given to different sages over a period of time. So why not go to this particular place and take the instructions from him? So it's so what happens is Uddhava is then supposed to go to another place. Remember this particular book which we are using called Uddhav Gita was actually not written at that time. It is Uddhava who gives instructions. I mean, he is recounting what the master has said to someone else, and then it gets written down. Okay, so the story will come up later on in the same book. By the time we come to one of the big fat books, no, we will come across that story also. So that is a time when the story, the thread will get picked up. All right. So, therefore, O great sage, please give me instructions on the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, so that He who is situated in the heart of everyone can be pleased to impart from within knowledge of the absolute truth in terms of the ancient Vedic principles, delivered only to those who are purified by the process of devotional service. Now, yesterday we were discussing about Krishna's, where does he stay? I told you that there are multiple things which are taken into account over here. There is a physical Krishna outside, which is what I said, he exists in that world. And then in this line also it is mentioned that he sits in the inside of the heart. Now the inside of the heart, and that day we were discussing on the crown of the head. Right? Now these are two locations where these things can happen. When a person reaches the Sahasrahar, reaches the top portion, he doesn't come back. So there is no devotional service. There is no loving God. You just get dissolved and you can become a Buddha for all you care. Alright? You are not bothered about God, you are not bothered about anything. You become that. I am that. The word, no? I am that is what is called self, you become that. But when you come to the heart, the chamber of the heart is supposed to be the place for devotion. Love and devotion for Krishna. Okay? So we are not going to go up over here and get dissolved in the. So this particular person, Vidura, is asking Maitreya, can you please tell me how to do this devotional service to Krishna so that we can reach the heart? Got it? So you have to be purified by the devotional service. O great sage, kindly narrate how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is independent, desireless Lord of the three worlds, and the controller of all energies, accepts incarnations and creates the cosmic manifestation with perfectly arranged regulative principle for its maintenance. In this line also, he is saying that Krishna is the one who is the father or mother or whatever you want to call him of two things. One is that he is an independent, desireless Lord. That means he is sitting without any desire on one side. On the other side, that is the Brahma, state of Brahma. Okay, divine, unmanifest. Okay. Then on the other side, he is called the powers. All the powers we mentioned in Prakriti, principle called Prakriti, various powers that are there. What are the powers that we discussed last time? There are 5 powers that are there. The first power is mentioned as Durga. Durga, she is controlling literally all the powers in the world, including whatever that you see. And today is her day, today and tomorrow is her day. There is another power which is called Lakshmi, which is all about money, wealth, beauty, so on and so forth. Then we have Saraswati, which is all about knowledge. It's all about knowledge alone. Then next we have
Savitri.
Savitri. Savitri is connected to the devotional aspect. That means it's it's not the devotional aspect, spiritual aspect of the Lord, and that is the knowledge of Gayatri and connecting to the devotional spiritual being. Then the last is called Radha aspect, which is nothing but love and devotion. All these emanate from Prakriti alone. This Prakriti is Krishna himself. So here he is saying these words, if you can see them. O great sage, kindly narrate how Krishna, who is the independent, desireless Lord of the three worlds and the controller of all energies, accepts incarnations and creates this cosmic manifestation with perfectly arranged regulative principles for its maintenance. Now just think about it. If there are no regulative principles, imagine karo, the earth is supposed to go on its axis. Okay, going round round. Suddenly it will stop in the middle and say थोड़ा समय रेस्ट लेता है. तो फिर बोलेगा थोड़ा और चलता है. फिर और रेस्ट लेगा. सन बोलेगा कल मैं उठने वाला नहीं है. What is going to happen? Tomorrow no hydrogen helium. Tomorrow we have a gas strike. Okay, no hydrogen being produced. This is all going to go to the dogs. So everything is so perfectly kept in place. These are regulative principles. The whole universe is ruled by this framework of regulative principles. Imagine a child is born like that in one of the movies they showed. He is old and then he becomes young.
Benjamin Button.
Yes, Benjamin Button. You know, that was the name of the movie. How funny can that be? So in this everyday world, we have regulative principles. So there are floods, like we have today in India. There is tsunami, there is fire, there is, you name it. And then for many months there will be calm, peace, quiet. There are going to be Malalas coming in, and there should be Angela Merkel's coming in tomorrow, and Indira Gandhi's, and everybody also. And on the other side you have Lincoln and everybody, you know, name it. All people are going to be there. They are a part of these regulative principles. Everything is under this one domain. He lies down on his own heart, spread in the form of the sky, and thus placing the whole creation in that space. He expands himself into many living entities which are manifested as different species of life. He does not have to endeavor from his maintenance because he is the master of all the mystic powers and the proprietor of everything. Thus he is distinct from the living entities. You see, if I have created this, I become the master, and the created entities become my domain, isn't it? See, I own a house, that means the house is not me. You got what I'm saying? So Krishna creates this entire universe. So the universe is not him. He is the owner. He is actually the domain owner of that. Alright? You may narrate also the auspicious characters of the Lord in his different incarnations for the welfare of the twice born, the cow and the demigod. Our mind are never satisfied completely, although we continuously hear of his transcendental activities. The Supreme King of all kings has created different planets and places of habitation, where living entities are situated in terms of the modes of nature and work, and he has created the different kings and rulers. Now he is not only talking about India and maybe some regions of India, but he is talking about the entire universe. He is not talking of only America, India, and Europe and all. No, no, no. He is talking about the entire universe. Wherever there is a habitation, there will be definitely rulers. Somebody is going to rule, somebody is going to get ruled. So this is a very normal thing. O chief among Brahmanas, please also describe how Narayana, the creator of the universe and the self-sufficient Lord, has differently created the natures, activities, forms, features and the names of the different living creatures. O my Lord, I have repeatedly heard about these higher and lower statues of human society from the mouth of Vyasdev, and I am quite satiated with all these lesser subject matters and their happinesses. They have not satisfied me with the nectar of topics about Krishna. Who in the human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all the places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by the great sages and devotees? Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affections simply by entering the holes of one's ear. In this line, he is talking about that only by surrendering at the feet of the Lord, you will get all the Tirtha Kshetra. That means you don't have to go to any places of pilgrimage at all. You don't have to go. There is nowhere to go after that. You can just be in your own place wherever you are. Just take the name of the Lord and you will find that all the Tirtha Kshetras will come to you. This was demonstrated by Sai Baba once upon a time. A disciple of his comes to him and says that I want to go to the Triveni Sangam. Triveni Sangam, you know where it is? Allahabad. Triveni Sangam are three rivers. They converge at one point. They join at one point. That is Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati. Saraswati is not seen. So they all come to a place, and when they conjoin over there, that place is called Tirtha Kshetra. Okay, it's a place where the Lord is supposed to also be there. At that particular place, if you go and take a bath, a dip in the river over there, you get purified. That is how it is mentioned. That is why people go to these places called Banaras and all Allahabad and all these places. By the way, Banaras is different than Allahabad. Okay, don't mix up the two places. Banaras is called Varanasi nowadays. In ancient times, it was Banaras. So, when Sai Baba was asking this gentleman, where are you going? So the person says, I am going to Banaras. I am going to Allahabad, where I will be taking a dip in that place. So Sai Baba tells him, why do you need to go to such a far away place? Why not just be over here? So it is mentioned in the Sri Sai Satcharitra that the Triveni Sangam is at the feet of the Guru. So what happens is, the man comes to touch his feet and suddenly from in between his fingers, a gush of water comes. And it is proved at that point in time that he need not go to any place over there. So he can just be at the feet of his Guru, that is Sai Baba, and that gentleman stays over there after that. So here also he is telling the same thing. The lotus feet is at sum total of all the pilgrimages. Even the sages and everybody worship the Lord. So if you are touching the lotus feet of Krishna, then you don't need to go to any holy places in this world. Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affection also. When you are surrendering at the feet of Krishna, then there is no family life left for you also, by the way. It will never be there. See, what happens is the family life is all about bondage. We may not understand this because we think family life is like I have to get married, I have to have children, and I have to take care, and I have to earn, I have to do this, I have to do that. But once you surrender to Krishna, then there is nothing called a family life. Then you become only a tool in his hands. When you become a tool in his hands, there is no need of going anywhere or doing anything. You just follow whatever he is telling you to do. Beyond that, there is nothing to do. Your friend, the great sage Krishna Dvapana Vyas, has already described the transcendental qualities of the Lord in his great work, the Mahabharata. But the whole idea is to draw the attention of the mass of people up to Krishna Katha, that is the Bhagavad Gita, through their strong affinity of hearing mundane topics. For one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards all other things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay. There is Krishna Katha. What is the meaning of the word Krishna Katha? Krishna Katha are called the Leelas of Krishna. Leelas are stories. You see, there is no need to read from a book any story. You can, in our childhood also, we have heard some little stories about Krishna. There are such tiny books also available which you can get from the marketplace also in case. There are so many of them, not that you don't have to get them. But this book which we are doing is called the Bhagavatam. Okay? Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a compilation of all the stories put together. You will come across stories which you have never heard of also, by the way. And these are Krishna stories. What has to be done is, you can just keep on reading or maybe listening or maybe talking about Krishna story one at a time. It does not matter. The moment you do that, your renunciation has started. The renunciation has begun. So here in this world it is mentioned, in this particular place it is mentioned, for one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing about such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases the indifference towards all other things. The moment you start listening to the stories of Krishna, or saying them, or listening to them, or whichever way, you will find yourself getting completely detached from the world. Such constant remembrances of the lotus feet of Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all the miseries without delay. O sage, persons who have who because of their sinful activities are averse to the topic of transcendence and thus ignorant for the purpose of Mahabharata, that is the Bhagavad Gita, are pitied by the pitiable. I also pity them because I see how their duration of life is spoiled by the eternal time, while they involve themselves in presentation of philosophical speculation, theoretical ultimate goals of life, and different modes of rituals. In the material world, you will find that we come across all these idiotic people. What do? They go to temple, to place to place to place, and they keep on doing all those vratas over there. And even the panditjis and everybody over there, they keep on telling them, you have to do this puja, that puja, ye karna, wo karna. You can imagine, if you want to have happiness, you should do this. If you want to have prosperity, you should do that. If you want to have children, you should do this. If you want to get married, you have to do that. How many things? Here, he is talking about this. Plus, there are philosophical speculators also. Who are the philosophical speculators? There are people who will buy heart the books. All beautiful texts, they will keep on by hearting them. You ask them, do you know the verse number 32 from this particular place? And he will continue to say those the words very fast. But if you actually ask him what is the meaning of those words, nobody understands. Absolutely nobody has any clue about it because it is only theoretical knowledge. It is philosophical. They are writing dissertations on these things. They become PhDs, by the way, of writing these Bhagavad Gita, and they submit it to the university, and the university gives them a PhD degree. I don't know how they get it. Doctor of Gita. I didn't know that. I can only think of some woman called Gita, और वो किसी डॉक्टर के पास जाती है. But the stupidity is there in this world. Okay, they get PhDs. They get. Oh, by the way, one of my very great relatives is now postgraduate in some, I don't know what. I was asking him how did he do. Then he's telling me, I do 2 hours of meditation. I do this and I do that. I said, is that so? I never knew God is available like that. हाँ, वो तो मेरा कुत्ता भी है ना 4 घंटा सोता है, उसको भी भगवान मिलना मांगता है, वो तो खड़े खड़े सो जाता है. He is always in meditation, incidentally. Okay, the only time he gets up is when he has to eat his food. He and she, both of them. Otherwise, it is difficult to wake them up. So, you don't get God by doing that. So, any philosophical speculation, illa, nothing happens. Theoretical ultimate goals of life, you keep on discussing, we do this and you do this and you do that. I'm sorry, it's never going to give you anything. Or different modes of rituals. All rituals, no ritual in this world is ever going to give you anything. You can take the biggest of the boblas on your planet Earth and you can cook in it and put it on your head and crack it also, nothing is going to happen. Because these are stupid rituals. Rituals are meant for removing some sort of an evil eye and all that. But if you have surrendered to the Krishna's feet, there is no need of anything in this world to do. Absolutely nothing is required. There is no need of going to temples, which is already mentioned. There is no need of philosophical discussions also. They don't have to bother about it. You don't have to read big treatises. पता नहीं कितने बड़े books है वहाँ पे. कोई पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. इधर जाने का नहीं, कुछ करने का नहीं, सिर के बल खड़ा नहीं रहने का. हाँ, सिर के बल खड़े रहना बोलेगा तो वो सब योगासन करते हैं ना. But unless and until, like I was seeing yesterday a beautiful film, okay, and he is not that into you or something. बहुत बड़ा नाम था उसका. Yeah, don't bang your head. Sorry. And that very beautiful girl in that film, she's a yoga teacher, and you get nirvana looking at such teachers, by the way. Yeah, of course. I don't remember her name. But she looked very beautiful in that film, and finally she gives Tangri to that great hero of ours. Okay, but film was very beautiful, nice. Anyway, coming back to this subject, so by doing all sorts of rituals, no ritual is going to give you anything. What is the point? I really don't understand why rituals are done. Why you have to go after philosophical discussions? Why you have to bother your head about all these things? So you just let it be. Leave it. O Maitreya, O friend of the distress, the glory of the Supreme Lord can alone do good for people of all over the world. Only the glory of the Lord, that's it. You can just tell stories about Krishna or read stories about Krishna, and more than enough for you. Therefore, just as bee collects honey from flowers, kindly describe the essence of all the topics of the Lord. So he is very clear. He says, don't tell me all these philosophical discussions, सब bouncer जाने वाला है. And now Sachin is also not there to play. So let us only discuss very simple things about Krishna. Kindly chant all those superhuman transcendental activities of the Supreme Controller Krishna, who accepts incarnation fully equipped with all the potencies for the full manifestation and maintenance of the cosmic creation. So can you kindly tell me the stories of Krishna, wherein he takes various avatars? Yesterday we were discussing about avatars, semi-avatars, so on and so forth. When Krishna was there in the Vrindavan, not Golok Vrindavan, Vrindavan, till the time he was there in Gokula, Vrindavan and all that, he was a Purna avatar. And when he goes to Mathura, it's a two avatar. One is Balram and one is Krishna. It's a split. And then when he goes to Dwarka, there are four avatars. All four are combination of these. Okay? Those are Balram, Sri Krishna, Anirudh and Pradyumna. Four avatars of his. Alright? So they split into four entities. There is one principal avatar. So like that, Krishna takes various avatars in various domains. So he says, can you kindly discuss about these avatars? Sukadeva Goswami said, the great sage Maitreya Muni, after honoring Vidura very greatly, began to speak at Vidura's request for the greatest welfare of the people. Sri Maitreya said, O Vidura, all glory unto you. You have inquired from me the greatest of all the goodnesses, and thus you have shown your mercy both to the world and to me, because your mind is always absorbed in the thought of the transcendence. That means oneness with God. See, everywhere the word called transcendence keeps on coming. You will wonder what this transcendence is. Nothing. Understand, there is only one word called Y-O-G-A, yoga. Alright? Yoga is nothing but union with God. Yoga doesn't mean standing on your head. No way. Please. Yoga means you have to be unified with God alone. Bas. Don't try doing all those things. It's better to go and join some gym. Oh Vidura. It is not at all wonderful that you have so accepted the Lord without deviation of thought, for you are born with the semen of Vyasdev.
You missed one verse, 18.
Alright, see Maitreya said, O Vidura, all glory unto you. You have inquired from me the greatest of the goodness, and thus you have shown the mercy both of the worlds to me, because your mind is always absorbed in the thought of transcendence. I just said these words. Transcendence. I explained the word transcendence just now. Transcendence means union with God. There is no other word over there. So, transcendence is that. Surely. Alright? So, Vidura, it is not at all wonderful that you have so accepted the Lord without deviation of thought, for you are born of the semen of Vyasdev. Vyasdev is also Krishna's avatar only, so we are not discussing any other thing. I know that you are now Vidura due to the cursing of Mandavya Muni and the formerly you were King Yamraj, the great controller of living entities after their death. You were begotten by the son of Satyavati. Vyasdev is the kept wife of his brother. This is the story which is being unfolded. Okay? It is how Yamdev was also cursed. Imagine Yamdev is a dead entity already somewhere, and the Gabwa guy is getting cursed and he is to be born again. It's a very devious way. Actually, in one of the very beautiful verses, it is said, we did yesterday, I think. Why the Lord does this? He only knows. Nobody knows why this is done. But everything is done with a purpose. A purpose is something which you can never understand. If you remember the verse which said, why did the Munis come to curse this entire Yaduvamsh? You remember this verse?
Yes.
Yeah. The Munis come and they curse this particular Yaduvamsh. And Krishna is over there. He is saying, okay, now the end has come. Now we have to put curtains to it. So that is, it's all a plan. Okay. So everybody is planned out in such a perfect way that no way of knowing how this is. So in the same way, the birth of Vidura is also there. The good self is one of the eternal associates of Supreme Personality of God, for whose sake the Lord, while going back to his abode, left instructions with me. So, Maitreya Muni is telling him, yes, Krishna has left some instructions with me. So, I am going to tell you that. I shall therefore describe to you the pastimes by which the personality of Godhead extends his transcendental potency for the creation, maintenance and dissolution of the cosmic world as they occur one after the other. The personality of Godhead, the master of all living entities, existed prior to the creation as one without a second. It is by his will only that creation is made possible, and again everything merges in him. This Supreme Self is symptomized by different names. We have already done this before the creation. From Krishna comes this entire universe, all the creation is coming out of him, and then everything goes back to it. This is the same verse which we have been doing time again. The Lord, the undisputed proprietor of everything, was the only seer. The cosmic manifestation was not present at that time, and thus he felt imperfect without his plenary and separated part and parcel. The material energy was dormant, whereas the internal potency was manifested. There was, I had gone to one very high, what do you say, किला को क्या बोलते हैं, किला,
Fort.
fort, which is very high atop a mountain. And I was wondering, how can people live at such a great height in ancient times? And I found inside that place, inside that very big fort, I found a very beautiful water body. Okay? And I was alone, by the way, there was nobody with me. And I dipped my hand in that water and I drank. It was amazingly refreshing and cool. I was wondering, how could people live? This was during the times of Shivaji Maharaj. Okay, this is around 16th century, 15th or 16th century, and this fort is called Lohagarh. It is next to Lonavala, and I had climbed that entire stretch up. In between, there were two caves. Okay, and those caves also I visited. There's called Bhaja caves were there, very beautiful caves. There is nothing inside the caves. There are stupas. Have you ever seen a stupa? A stupa is a round building inside a cave. There is nothing inside that thing, by the way. All right. It's the Buddhist. These stupas are built by the Buddhist. So the Bhaja caves were built by the Buddhist. And you just go over there, sit and meditate. You meditate on yourself. The reason for me to tell you this is because there is no reason why these things are happening. There is no definitive reason, because from our very tiny mind of ours, we cannot understand how these things happen. I told you the reason why that water body was there. Now, whoever built that fort must have definitely discovered that water body. Otherwise, why will he build that fort over there? So everything is related to each other. Can you see that? Why one person comes in connect with another, and another comes in connect with another, and another comes in connect with another, there is no way of knowing. But there is a grand plan at play, and that is what the plan is mentioned in this line. The Supreme Living Being, in his feature as the Transcendental Purusha incarnation, who is the Lord's plenary expansion, impregnates that material nature in the three modes, and thus by the influence of eternal time, the living entities appear. It's like a grand plan, it's already there in some place, and it just keeps on coming out like that. So that is the reason why it is mentioned, or I think I missed out one line, isn't it? Okay, right, I missed out one line. Yeah, the Lord is the seer and the external energy, which is seen, works as both cause and effect in the cosmic manifestation. Actually, I was talking about this line. So you will find that two things are at play. One is the Purusha aspect and one is the Prakriti aspect. Prakriti is, it's like on the blueprint of something, she is creating something. There is a blueprint somewhere the blueprint is there. We don't know where the blueprint is. So she creates as per the blueprint. Alright? So the cosmic manifestation happens. Oh great fortunate Vidura, the external energy is known as Maya or illusion. And through her agency only is the entire material manifestation made possible. Maya is illusion. Illusion which causes delusions in the minds of people. And that is the reason why it is said that Krishna's powers, the potencies are so strong that you cannot understand them. And they can cause a lot of illusions in the mind of people. There are various examples that I keep on giving most of the time, like that phone example which I kept on giving. So it's the same thing, when you look at an object, the object appears so beautiful, yet you don't know about it. Many years ago, I met one person. Me and Kalpana, we were in some exhibition and we met this very beautiful lady. And when we were just admiring her, and we went to her stall and we took one cup of tea from them. They were distributing free tea. And then this girl opens her mouth and she asks us some questions. And then we look at her teeth. There were holes and they were brown completely. So we asked her, how did that happen? So we were told that she is a tea taster. So the appearance was very beautiful, Maya. And the tea. So you can see the two things are there. Maya is one aspect which is illusory, but जब भी हम देखते हैं तब वो delusion में डाल देते हैं. So you can be deluded by the same mind. The Supreme Living Being is this feature as a transcendental Purusha incarnation who is the Lord's plenary expansion, impregnates the material nature of the three modes, and thus by influence of eternal time the living entities appear. So in this line it is mentioned one of the incarnation, one of the things that are coming out of Krishna is called Purusha. Now this Purusha gives his impetus to this another entity called Prakriti, the three modes of nature, and thereafter whatever comes out of it is this entire universe. Thereafter, influenced by the interaction of eternal time, the supreme sum total of matter called the Mahat Tattva became manifested. And in this Mahat Tattva, the unalloyed goodness, the Supreme Lord, sowed his seeds of universal manifestation out of his own body. Thereafter, the Mahat Tattva differentiated itself into many different forms as a reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahat Tattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance and it generates the false ego. It is plenary expansion of personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principle and time for fructification. Prakriti, with her principle called Maya, delusion or illusion, creates entities in this world. The moment they are born, they are covered with ignorance. The moment an entity is born, it is like we take up a body. The moment we take up a body, we become completely ignorant. So we are covered by ignorance. And this is the power of the Lord. We can cover anybody or anything up instantly like this. Mahat Tattva, or the great causal truth, transforms into false ego. So the person starts believing, I am so and so. A child is born, you give him a name and you say, you are Sachin. And immediately he starts believing, I am Sachin. And then you teach the child to play cricket. And then he becomes Sachin Tendulkar. What happened was, this was nothing but how the universe conspires to create this ego. So this is called the great causal truth. Mahat Tattva is transforming into an ego, which is manifested in three phases: cause, effect, and the doer. Three things it creates: cause, effect, and the doer. If it is becoming difficult, you will understand from this very simple principle of, let us say, I have taken this example of Sachin Tendulkar. Okay? So Sachin Tendulkar says, I made so many centuries. So the doership has come or no? Right? What is the cause and effect? Let us say, what is the cause? I was playing good cricket. I scored very nicely. So I could make the runs. See how many eyes came into the picture? I played very nicely for India. I could do so many runs. Because of that, India got such a big score. And because of that, I also became a century batsman. So I am the great Sachin Tendulkar. All the eyes have come together, and this is how the whole picture happens. It also is when somebody gets the Oscar or somebody gets the Filmfare Award. The person feels no end of himself. Well, I got the award for this particular film. And that is an ego. It's called a false ego. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross senses, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. How is the goodness? How is the passion? And how is the ignorance? All coming into play. Let me tell you the same example. A person says, मैं करता हूँ, I did this. That is called ignorance. I made 100 runs. I did the best acting of my life in this particular film. I put in so much of effort, passion. He puts in so much of effort. I played the strokes nicely. I did this, I did this, I did this. Goodness. How does goodness come into play? I was playing for India. Goodness, isn't it? When I am playing for India, I won the Nobel Prize for India. Oh, is that so? I didn't know that. So this is how it works. So when the goodness aspect is also there, ignorance is also there. So the false ego is transformed into mind by interaction with the modes of goodness. All the demigods who control the phenomenal world are also the products of the same principle, namely the interaction of the false ego and the modes of goodness. I want to stop over here, alright? So this false ego that is there is also the one which even the gods are going to have. All gods also have this false ego. So let us not get this wrong. So all the demigods who control the phenomenal world are also products of the same principle. Even the gods are products of the same principle. So don't be under the wrong impression. Unfortunately, you don't know you are the god also. They know they are the god. That is the difference between them and you. I mean, if I tell you tomorrow onwards you are God, instead of saying you are Brito, you are saying, "Hail Almighty God, Brito." What will happen? So your ego will have no bounds. So mainly the interaction of the false ego and the modes of goodness. I'm going to stop over here because we have to continue with our presentation. So we will stop here. Alright? So before that, do you have any questions you can ask me? This last part I am going to continue next time. Alright? Because it's a lengthy process. So we will do that process later on because how the creation happens, how the ego comes into the picture is a very interesting story. So the story we will give for the next time. This time I think Vidura can take a leave for Dasara. Alright. So, so tell me, any questions? No?